Casual player in Top Cat, and it's me. But let me give you some more context on the event that we played this past weekend. It was Bandai Card Fest Utrecht, the biggest event in Europe this year, and the top 2 players qualified to the World Championship in Japan. Over 2000 players participating, 12 rounds of Swiss, and day 2 of Top Cat 128 players. To qualify to day 2, you had to have the score at least 9 wins and 3 losses. And the Top Cat was still not guaranteed. I somehow managed to win 10 games and lose 2, so the Top Cat was guaranteed without worry for the tiebreakers. But let me start from the beginning. Let's review the event overall, and I will speak a little bit about my matches and the experience through the tournament. Even though the event was played through the weekend, Saturday day 1 and Sunday day 2 for Top Cat, it was recommended to do the early check-in. Because of that, we arrived in Utrecht on Friday and proceed to the early check-in area. Unfortunately, there were some small organization issue, I suppose, because Bandai Card Fest is not the event only for the One Piece card game, but for all card games released by Bandai. Once we arrived in early check-in area, there were a lot of people already queuing up, even though we were slightly before the check-in starts. In this big chaos, couple of staff personnel started to prepare the proper routes to the corresponding queues to register for the proper events, because it was not only one queue, apparently there were more, it just wasn't prepared on time, I suppose. But quite quickly we separated into proper queues and the register process was not so time consuming. After the registration, you receive the standard badge to enter the tournament area the next day, and because we participated in early check-in, we received one extra pack with a chance to open serialized Luffy. Quite a nice bonus for being early. Not much to say afterwards, we went back to the hotel and then the day 1 started. On the Saturday morning we proceed to hall number 3 and we got directly hit by overwhelming amount of people. Players, spectators, all the press, the staff, the judges, just a big mass of people, as you can expect from the biggest event in Europe. You could immediately see the people queuing up to pick up the participation prizes, but also the pre-ordered albums of the premium collection, be it One Piece, Dragon Ball or any other product that was available on the pre-sale. I think it was a good solution because you didn't need to worry that you will not be on time to get your product before it's sell out. So anyone with the participation ticket could pre-order this beautiful album. The only issue here is that when you have a tournament with so many people from many different games, the queues were never ending. But here a plus to the organizers, because they had prepared everything in advance, counted up so you could pick up your participation prizes and pre-order stuff through the whole weekend. So there was no time limit per se. It was not first come, first serve. If you had something pre-ordered, you had the time through duration of the event to pick it up. The event started more or less on time without any big issues, and the whole pairing was done through the Bandai TCG Plus application. I didn't encounter any issues, everything went smooth. So for the games itself, I played the deck that I practiced the most before the event. Even though I'm a casual player, I wanted to perform as good as possible, and I had the motivation after the recent Treasure Cup where I managed to go into top 32. So here I had high hopes to at least get the top cut. It was my plan, minimum maybe little contradiction here that despite being casual player, I really wanted to put effort into this one tournament, so I practiced quite a lot. In the first round, I played against NL. Fortunately, I had a lot of not only sim practice, but also I theory craft a lot this matchup not to get caught by surprise, because the prediction was that the most represented deck will be Toffee, and I know in Europe we really like to pick up NL whenever the aggro deck is present, and the Toffee was labeled as an aggro deck of the tournament, so it was not surprising that the NL will appear. As you can see from my matchups, I played against 3 NLs in total. I didn't expect so many, so I was a little bit worried. Are my fundamentals strong enough to beat the good NL players? But fortunately, as you can see from the scores, I won against those opponents. The only losses that I had was round 2 against Bonnie. I didn't stand much chance. If I remember correctly, I lost the dice. My opponent saw 2 copies of Cavendish, I think, back to back. Overall, he played very well, was going second, and even though I'm playing the Kuzan, I couldn't really set up the good removal turns. So I just lost the game. Opponent was better, and I was a bit worried because when you lose the round 2, you get this mindset that if you have 10 more rounds to play, now no mistakes can be done. But also you are getting worried if you met Bonnie so early, maybe you will meet the next one. And as we know, Black Yellow Luffy has really bad matchup into Bonnie, unless you can meet some circumstances like going second, playing Kuzan and so on. Other than that, it's not so easy, at least for me. But fortunately, as you can see, the next one was NL, then was Toffee, and Toffee matchup I practice a lot. I know that in Europe a lot of players practice many different builds. We have the really aggressive builds that rely on the pudding to cut the cards from the hand of the opponent, but I also saw a lot of control builds being played, including Tenko's Kaido, also the removal events. So very versatile deck, you never know which build exactly Toffee is playing. I was the best prepared to play against the builds with 2-cost Stitch and 6-cost Jozu, and because of that, in each Toffee matchup when I won the dice, I chose to go first, just to have a little bit more buffer, because I was afraid of the Toffies that capitalize on early aggression, building the board and then pushing with pudding. I was not so afraid for the more control build. That's why I chose to go first. Also was a little bit easier to play around the pudding, because now babies are getting bounced back to hand. But when we are going first, we are not drawing, so even if Toffee is really aggressive, we can afford to take some life, maybe under counter sometimes if no other choice, and have that rare prepared. But it's not the video about the Toffee matchup. But all in all, I was more or less prepared, and as you can see, it paid out. Round 4 won against Toffee, and then round 10 also Toffee that I won against. Moving on, we have the NL again that you know already, and then the Bonnie. And here I was a little bit worried, because the second Bonnie in the tournament, I was calculating to meet at least one, but I hoped that it will be the only one. So here, full try hard to play as best as possible, and the match was really close. I won mostly because I was able to get the control of the board. You know, when you play against green decks, you really want to go for the board, and once you can take over, maybe they have one weak turn because they can't search everything in the deck, and then you proceed to take advantage. However, if I remember correctly, I did one big misplay during the game, and because it's the tournament, obviously you cannot take it back. I had a really weird turn where I was transforming 3 times at total, so my leader ended up being 11k in this turn, because I had one previous life up and then transformed 3 times, and the reason for that was my opponent played 8 cost kit, rested with the Rosinante blocker, so I wanted to remove everything, the blocker, the kit, and there was also carrot on board, if I remember correctly. So the sequence was that I wanted to shoot obviously the Rosinante and then reduced Captain Kit, because I managed to defend my Kuzan, but I missequenced and tunnel vision to attack with my 5 cost Luffy first into carrot, because I was attacking 8k into 6k, but I didn't remove the kit first, and you must attack, you have to attack kit when he's rested with the dawn. So my opponent was like, hey, but the kit is still on board, and I was like, okay, then can I take it back and remove your kit first, or does the attack goes into kit? But yeah, serious tournament, so no take backsies, and the attack went into kit. Opponent fortunately countered there, because I think it was better maybe to let the kit go and save the card in hand, because it was already reduced, so I followed up with the Rocket Luffy and cleaned the kit, and carrot was not much trouble. I mean, because of that it was still closed, because carrot effect is quite annoying, but I managed to finish the game as the winner, so was really motivated to push forward, especially that it was round 6, so already half of the tournament, and if for the first half of the tournament I had only 1 lose, I was really pumped up to push to the end. Unfortunately though, round 7, SD14 Luffy, and I need to be honest with you, I didn't practice the matchup that much. I was not expecting high representation of the deck, but as you can see I met one. And this one was very good. He also saw all the pieces that he needed. He showed me very well. Overall I think MVP for my opponents through the tournament was well-timed issue every time. I think every issue that got played against me ripped the key cards or made my life miserable. Well played to my opponent. SD14 Luffy had no problems to defeat me. Afterwards I knew that one more lose and it will be a very, very close tournament. So again I said to myself, okay, you did some mistakes against SD14 Luffy. From now on try to focus back your mind on track. It's just 2 losses, you can still do it to the top cut. So the next deck I faced was Lucci, so here I was quite happy. As we know, the best matchup, but Lucci players in this tournament teched really well into all the matchups, I think, especially the black-yellow Luffy one with some spicy cards, obviously Zombie Luffy, 9-cost Kaido, and so on. So even though I was confident, I had to be really careful, and actually I think this game was my closest game against Lucci. Also something really smart that my opponent did, it was this one or the round 11, I'm sorry, I don't remember. But something smart that my opponent did, he noticed that I played Flampe turn 1. I was going second, I wanted to find Kuzan. So I played Flampe, draw my cards, I found a Kuzan, but my opponent was smart, and because I played the Flampe early, he started to push my life. So this is something to be mindful, that your opponent, if they have a lot of experience, they might be prepared for your game plan and punish you for that. So something to be mindful. He pushed me to the point that he was attacking with the leader and even with the Spandam, because they played Spandam turn 1. Yeah, this one I remember. So it was really clever. I really enjoyed the game. I really started sweating that it might be my third lose. Moving on the round 9 we had Smoker, and Smoker had really nice representation in the tournament, I think, as the black deck to beat BY Luffy. However, I think my opponents, at least in Swiss, weren't that lucky, or maybe they were missing something, but as you can see, I played Smoker twice, one in round 9 and one in round 12, and the games, even though they did a lot of proactive stuff, removing my characters, using Tashigi and so on, I feel like they either bricked or maybe over-countered a little bit. I'm not sure how the Smoker should be properly played. I didn't test the deck that much. I know it's the strong deck for sure. However, I always noticed that those two players had not that many cards in hand. But maybe it was just a bad draw, hard to say. Nonetheless, I was able to win the matchup, so I was quite happy because I didn't have that much practice into the matchup. And then, as you can see, I had another Doffy, and after the round 10, I already knew that I need to win the next one to be kind of chill, because winning round 11 would be 9-2 already, and I was quite fortunate to queue up into another Lucci, and I think it was my fastest game in the tournament, so it was quite relieving after such a stamina run. So yeah, Lucci, it was just unfortunate to my opponent. I saw everything I needed to see. So basically we were at the point where the opponent just said, okay, I lose regardless what I do now. So the match finished really quickly, and I was relieved that I'm going into potential round 12 with 9 wins and 2 losses. And something interesting here, some tournaments are played until there is one undefeated, but this one, because they already announced 12 rounds at the start of the tournament, they played the full 12 round Swiss. So this is relevant when you play the tournaments. Always be mindful that even though normally we play until there is one undefeated, some tournament organizers go by the rule that how many rounds they announce, that many rounds are being played, especially if there is day 2 of the tournament, to maybe have cleaner top cut. So I knew that I already have like 70% to make a top cut on the day 2, because top cut was 128 players. So 9-3 was enough if you had good tiebreakers, but on the other hand, I lost round 2, so I was not sure how my tiebreakers will be. So went into round 12 fully motivated, especially that I had such a long time break between rounds because of fortunate matchup against the Lucci round 11. And in round 12 I played against another Smoker, and here quite a close match, but like I said, in both Smoker matches I just felt that they were short on cards. So managed to win clean 10-2, clean top cut, but it was already late, so I just wanted to go eat the dinner, shower, sleep, and proceed to the day 2. On day 2 it was again a little bit chaotic. We had to be, I think, 8:30 at the hall Then at 9 we started gathering in the top cut area, and I think the top cut started like 9:30, something like that. And in top cut, for those of you that don't know that, the rules are that we are playing 1 hour best of 3. So really tiring tournament. First 12 rounds of Swiss the first day, and then starting from the morning, top 128 equals 7 rounds, I think, if you go all the way to the finals. So the finalists had to play at least 21 matches if they won everything 2-0. So yeah, quite tiring. My first opponent in the top cut was Purple Luffy. So once we flipped the leaders, I was a little bit stressed because Purple Luffy is not a good matchup for BY Luffy. Even though we are still in 8.5, they already have all the tools to manage the matchup. I had a higher seed, so it means after the first day of the tournament I had higher placing than my opponent, so I was choosing the turn order. I think I did a mistake in the mulligan. I didn't mulligan for 5 cost Luffy. I kept the hand that I thought is enough, but unfortunately it wasn't. I also think I did some micro mistakes on some decisions, so overall I noticed that my opponent has huge advantage in this match, and because the time is so limited, it's only 1 hour, and if after 1 hour your opponent is 1-0, even though we are in the middle of the next game, he will just automatically win. So I knew, okay, now that I'm losing this game, maybe better scoop and start the next game to have at least 1-1, and then push for the game 3 maybe in overtime and so on. So as I said, I just concede to my opponent. I said, okay, we go game 2, let's rush. And I think it was one of my fastest decision making in this game and tournament ever. Like, the game was really quick. Again, I chose to go first, but this time I hyper focus on 5 cost Luffy. I think I even Makino early just to check if I have any 5 cost Luffy in live, if I remember correctly, because my plan was, okay, start spamming the Luffy on board and start transforming, pushing the life early because there is not much time. Once I overwhelmed my opponent with the push, this time he said that he is conceding, and we had 1-1. I think we had still like half hour to go, so enough to play the game 3. And in game 3 something interesting happened. I don't want to go too much into details because I am not sure what was the reason, but to put it briefly, judge informed me in the middle of the game that the opponent is getting disqualified from the tournament, so I've got the so-called free win and qualified to the top 64. And I had mixed feelings because I had the feeling that even though I was going second, I had quite a good hand to play the game, but if there was any suspicious behavior from my opponent and judge notice it, then it's their job to clarify the issue, and the conclusion was that they disqualified the player. What reason? I don't know, they don't share this information, so I was just informed that I qualify top 64. And then unfortunately I've got the reality check, and the history kind of ends here because I got paired against Trek. And if you're following One Piece card game scene in Europe, you probably already know who Trek is. One of the top players from France, and he was playing Smoker, and this time it was the Great Smoker. I suppose they won. I either played against good Smoker players or maybe the players that bricked a bit, but the Trek pilot the Smoker really well. It was really high level gameplay. I've got beaten regardless if I was going first or second. I also had one place lower seed than him. So nothing to say here, just outclassed. So well played to him, and there is a reason why he is on the top. So after losing 0-2, obviously that was the end of the tournament for me. Had to wait for the end of the round, then pick up my prizes, a lot of packs and a lot of chances to pull the serial Luffy. Afterwards we went straight home because I was participating in the tournament with my girlfriend, had a lot of great support from her, so we just went back home, and at home we opened the prizing. Most of the time I open my prizes, I don't sell them sealed, and it was a good decision this time because I was lucky enough, or rather hands of my girlfriend were lucky enough to open the serial Luffy. So overall I was rewarded for my hard work that I put into the game, despite being everyday casual player. When you put the effort into the tournament, sooner or later you will bring some results. And here let me touch briefly on the topic of the preparation to the tournament. I played a lot of sim games mostly, but also I spent some time to kind of play against myself. If you have the possibility, and if you don't have the cards, you have the One Piece simulator, or you can print proxies. Try to play the matchup against yourself. So for example, if I'm struggling against the NL, I might set up the game and even put the perfect hands for yourself, your opponent, and see how the matchup goes turn by turn. Because what I realized, even though being the casual player, I improved a lot once I changed my thinking. Like, a lot of players are blaming bad draws, maybe perfect curve from the opponent, and so on and so on. But in every game that you lose, I guarantee in most of the games you did some misplay, at least one. But about the level of learning, I think in One Piece we have at least 2 levels to learn. The first one is obviously practicing your own deck and realizing your game plan in the game. So it's like the basics, the fundamentals of your deck and what you want to do. But the real gaming, the real high level stuff, in my opinion, starts on level 2. So when you realized what your opponent wants to do and learn how to play against it, or how to disrupt the plan, but at the same time push your own game plan. So simple example, even if you play BY Luffy versus Bonnie, you realize that this is the deck that wins through the board, and you can map the turn for the strongest place. So let's say we play Kuzan on curve, and then we follow up with the punch Luffy. Most of the time it should be clear to you that if you played the Luffy on turn with 6 Dawn, next turn for your opponent is 7 Dawn, so you expect Hodi. So how do you play around Hodi? You activate your Luffy and you don't attack at all. Like, they are very simple stuff once you realize them, and I'm just scratching the surface here. But the more you play, the more experience you get. You are getting to this level that you start to understand, okay, the next turn from my opponent, this will be the strongest play. What can I do from my side, not to disrupt my plan too much, but to make the life harder for my opponent? And once you progress even further, you start planning maybe 2 turns in advance, or maybe like chess players, you start planning the whole game once your brain is big enough for that. For me, it's not so straightforward. I still have a lot to practice, a lot to learn. I was able to map some turns of my opponents, but it's for sure not on the level to map the whole game. 1 turn, 2 turns, sometimes yes, when I'm in the zone, but there is still a lot to learn from this game, especially now that we are going into new expansion with a lot of interesting new decks. And if you went through the whole video with me, I have small announcement to make. Maybe for some of you it's a little bit too late, but I would like to kind of give back to the community in some way. And I know that lately we had a lot of master classes from BY Luffy, from a lot of high ranked players, and even though I may be not on the top, I just have some smaller achievements. I think I practiced the deck enough that I can summarize the public knowledge. It will be free, it will be on YouTube probably this coming weekend, because I also used it to prepare myself to the tournament. So even though I will be covering mostly 8.5, I will also cover the total basics of the deck. So if you have someone that is just starting with the deck, or maybe you want to start playing with it or get a little bit more advanced, then you are welcome to just go through the short free masterclass, if we can call them, in the coming days. And this is the content that I've put a lot of time into. I think right now I have like 12 pages of the script, so be sure to check it out and then give me some feedback if this kind of deep dive content for free especially is needed, because I think the education like that in the card games should be free. Obviously, if you have some really spicy stuff or something that only you know, then you put the paywall. But overall, the goal of my channel is to stay close to the casual players and maybe progress together to some higher level slowly. So to sum up, really great tournament for me. The end of the year was really my peak, to quote Monkey D. Luffy in Gear 5, and I really hope to practice even more for the 2025 to maybe this time achieve my first serial from the competition and not really from the gacha boosters. But that's it for today. Thank you for joining me on this short talking head vlog type video. See you in the next one. Bye bye.